Let's get those cameras on. Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
All right. How's everybody feeling after that Super Bowl last night? Everyone stay up
Fine.
for it?
Yeah, we stayed up for it. We didn't really party. We had appetizers and that was it.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. It was a good one. No matter who you were pulling for. I mean, that's a pretty exciting 35-38. Incredible game. All right. Well, we might have some more jump in. If they do, I'll let them in. But we'll go ahead and get started. Anybody have anything big real estate related happen last week? Anything good happen?
I went under contract for
Nice.
largest, highest amount of house I've ever had, if that makes sense.
Yeah, good for you. Are you on the buyer side or the listing side?
Buyer side.
Nice. Okay.
I haven't dipped my toes into the listing side yet.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Tyler, you've put someone under contract on the buy side?
I'm working with a couple clients right now on some, yeah. Should be in the next 10 days. I should have one for a buyer. She's just waiting for her credit score to change with her lenders because it changes the down payment. So they're waiting for that to update. But she had one she wanted the other day, but they just waited. So
Gotcha.
I've got two that are an immediate need, two or three
That-
actually.
You think maybe that's something that if you ask for a buyer's credit or seller's credit might help with their down payment, might be able to get them approved now?
No, the two she's looking at, I don't know. No,
Gotcha.
I don't. There's
Okay.
not that much wiggle room in them.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, sometimes going above what you need. I mean, I'm not sure what price you're looking at.
Oh, go above it? Yeah, I guess I could offer that. I didn't think about that. We did talk about that last week.
What price point are you at, or are you offering?
The one she wants to close by the end of April. She wants a place at the lake there. She's looking at it was a $340,000 townhouse.
Yeah, so maybe you just put 345 or whatever it is, and get a couple thousand extra just so she has more money for down payment.
That's true. Her down payment will go from 10% to the 3.5%. So that's why she's
That
waiting.
is a big difference, yeah.
Yeah. So and he's already overpriced, but that's what one I was texting you about. Like he's already a little overpriced. Like how much
Right.
can he push it? But he's like maybe about 10, 15 over. He's one price reduction above. So I know he's pushing it. He's an agent that owns it.
Gotcha. All
So
right. So Abby, I think you're the only one that's completed on the buyer side transactions.
I've had 4 transactions so far, but I've been
Nice.
licensed for about 6 months.
Well, nice, very impressive. That's quite the start.
I'm
Oh.
happy with it.
Yeah, very good, very impressive.
are those sphere of influence or did you get leads or what?
Op City.
Op City? Dang, I just signed up for that a couple days ago and it's like, as soon as you push the button, it's already gone.
You gotta, yeah. It'll get better the longer it goes. If you start getting them, they start giving you a little bit longer to answer. At least that's what I think. And also, if you will respond through your email through Op City and you write down that you met them when you do, that also gives you brownie points.
Yeah. And you have to respond to everything. So even if you don't want it, you got to click no. I mean, you got to work it right. In the beginning, a lot of times you're going to get lower end stuff, 60,000 house here, $100,000 house here, but eventually that stuff will add up a lot more. You just have to be kind of patient with it, but a good way to get started. So, well, congrats, Abby. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Tanya, how you doing this morning? Jumping on late.
I'm doing good. I had some technical difficulties, but I'm here.
I'm just kidding. Well, we're gonna work on some working with buyers and getting your offers accepted this morning, so we'll kind of jump in it. Today's daily affirmation: I know my value and only work with realistic, qualified, motivated buyers and sellers. This one can be very important because there's a lot of times that you work with people that are not qualified. I mean, Tyler's kind of working with someone it's on the verge of being qualified, not realistic. You know, we work with a lot of those people on the listing side, wanting a much higher price, and not motivated. You know, if you have a buyer or seller that's not motivated, trying to get them to do a transaction is not always very easy. So sometimes cutting those people out and finding clients that are more realistic, qualified, and motivated is going to be super helpful for you guys. So know your worth. The steps in the buyer process, we're just gonna go through the whole buyer's spill today. So feel free to stop me if you have any questions. Oh, you got something in the chat. Opcity. It's a lead program that's offered through Realty One Group. It's basically realtor.com leads, and they're live transfers. If it's something that you're interested in doing, you can reach out to Amanda, and she can walk you through that. But as Abby has mentioned, it's a good program. It's a good way to get your feet wet and to start getting some buyers. But yeah, it is all buyer leads for the most part, I believe. Yeah, it's a good program. So yeah, reach out to Amanda if you're interested in learning more about that.
I think they take, is it 35% commission?
Yeah, I think it's 35. So kind of what Tyler asked before when he asked, you know, Abby, how'd you get these leads? You know, there's a lot of different ways. You know, buyers are pretty abundant, and I think in most people's mind, you know, finding buyers is easier than finding sellers. But there's a lot of different ways to find buyers. You know, we just mentioned Opcity, but referrals is a big way. Obviously, for being new, that's a little bit tougher. Open houses is a great way for new agents. I'm probably going to hold an open house this coming up weekend. If somebody wants to join, welcome to do it. But that's a great way to meet potential buyers. Obviously, the internet, farming, your circle of influence, your sphere of influence, as some people will say. Usually, a great way to get your first couple of transactions is people that you personally know, right? Social media, networking, door knocking. There's a ton of different ways to find buyers, but you need to be active in almost all of them. Opcity is a great tool. You know, at the end of the day, you probably don't want all your business coming from Opcity, but it's a good way to start and build those transactions in your experience. The buyer process. It's a lot, right? Look at this long snake. I'm sure Abby will attest to, it is not just showing them one house and then it's a done deal. It is a very long process. So you guys have to be ready to handle the whole transaction, right? So, you know, finding the buyer, step one, you know, doing a consultation with them, getting your agreement signed with them, getting them showings arranged, making the offers, getting into escrow, you know, getting to the whole loan process, going through the escrow doc signed at the ending, getting it funded, and then getting your buyer into the house, or the steps that it takes to get from beginning to end. So it's a lot to learn and navigate. And this being crooked is very, very accurate, because sometimes it is a long, windy road. Hopefully your first couple of transactions will all be very smooth. It does seem like for most agents, their first transaction or two is usually pretty crazy, which is good on the job experience. So be ready for that.
Hey, Brian,
Yes.
do you hold your clients to, like when you have them sign the form to work with you and you say you charge 3%, but you know, the listing agent's only willing to pay 2.5%. Do you, when you go to close, do you have them make up that difference, or do you just kind of?
It depends. It depends on the amount of the house and the relationship I have with the client. I have one right now that I'm going to have them make up the difference. Sometimes I just roll with whatever the buyers or the listing agent is offering. It really just depends. I pretty much always put 3% in the agreement initially. Yeah, it just depends on the amount for me. Basically what he's asking for everyone else is not understanding that question is, when you look in the MLS, you'll see what they're offering the buyer's agent, right? Does everyone understand what I'm talking about? Okay. So a lot of times that number is, 2.5 or 3% is, kind of the normal numbers. Basically what he's asking is when it's 2.5, are you having your client make up the difference? Sometimes, and we definitely have some agents that do that on a regular basis. And you definitely can, but you need to make sure that your client is aware of that, so they know that they're going to be paying that out of their pocket, that extra 0.5% or
What
whatever
do
it
you
may
want,
be.
doing,
But,
Brad?
so to answer your question, maybe 50-50.
Mm.
Depending if they ran you around a lot and you worked with them 6 months and you looked at 50 homes and you're like, hey, wanna
Right.
get
And
paid
if it's,
off.
if it's a $200,000 house, I might not worry about as much, but if it's a $600,000 house, I might be like, hey, like I need that extra 0.5%. Some people would do that the other way around. So yeah, just again, and also depending on, yeah, like you said, how much effort I put into it.
Yeah, I didn't know if it would like burn a bridge if you ever asked for that or
Yeah, I mean, it's again,
trade off.
it really just depends. You have to be very comfortable with your client as well, and say, hey, look, this listing agent's not paying the full fee that I ask. I'm ask that you make up that other 0.5%, and make sure that they're okay with that. Yeah. Step 1A, pre-qualified. On the buying side, make sure that everyone is strongly motivated. Do they have children? How long have they been looking? Are they able to buy? Can they move now? And what I mean by that is, when is their lease expired? Do they just renew their lease? Are they able to sell? Are they stuck in the school zone with their kids? A lot of different things you have to factor in on whether they're realistically going to buy a house right now. Is their credit able to buy? And that's what you guys will find on most of your people is can they buy a house right now credit wise? Because usually if you find someone that's looking to buy a house, they want to buy a house. It's just a matter of can they afford it and is their credit going to allow them? So you'll definitely want to find lenders that you guys are comfortable with. We do a lot with Movement Mortgage. And if you guys need recommendations on a good lender, we can definitely do that. And you'll want to get to know them on a personal level, and they're always happy to take you to lunch and get to know you because they want your referrals. But having a good lender is super helpful because you're going to have people that come to that cannot afford to buy a house right now, and you can set them up with your lender and they can put them on the right track of paying off certain credit cards and getting their credit better. And when they get that done, they will send that client back to you, right? So you're not spinning all your wheels trying to help them get their credit repaired. Let the lender do that, and then they'll come back to you. All right. Buyer questionnaire. Pretty basic stuff, right? Information. Just their basic address and all that stuff. The two bottom ones are the most important, right? Are they pre-approved, and have they started that list? That's where you need to come in. If they've already been pre-approved, it sounds like they might already have a lender, then great, let them roll with that. If they don't, then recommending someone and using your referrals can be good for your business, right? Because when you're constantly referring someone to your lender, they're going to hand you business back in return, right? But also it's nice when you know the lender because you know how they work, you know how they're going to get pre-approved, you know how they're going to close. And do they currently own a home? Why would we want to know if they currently own a home now?
So we can list it.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, if you're meeting with a potential buyer, find out if they own or rent. If they own, then more than likely they're probably gonna have to sell that house to buy this new house, right? And you know, typically you want to have their house listed before they're buying, right? And not all buyers understand the order that things need to happen. You know, a lot of people that are listing a house are not going to accept an offer on someone that needs to sell their house that's not even listed yet or active or under contract, right? So if your potential buyer has a house and hasn't listed it yet, they want to wait till they find their dream house and then list it. That is not the order of events. That is not going to work, right? So make sure that you're jumping on that ball. And then obviously finding out like what's their must have, right? Is it an older couple that must have a ranch where they can't walk upstairs? You know, what's their bonus list? Maybe they want a hot tub or pool out back. And a knockout list. If this house has this, it doesn't work, right? So know what your clients want, put that in your CRM. You know, if you're constantly sending your client houses that don't work for them, they're going to stop using you, right? These people are going to get frustrated with you because you're sending them houses that are not the right houses. So make sure you put in your notes, right? And if you guys are working with 5, 6, 7 clients, it can be hard to remember all that stuff if you don't have proper notes in your CRM. Look at this cute little agent. Good morning. Hi, good morning. So know what your clients want and try to only send them stuff that works and works in their budget. Again, getting approval is really the first step. There are times when I meet someone and they want to look at a house that I will show them a house or two before they've been approved or have gone through that process, but normally not more than that. And normally I'm just doing that so I'm building rapport with them so I can get them to sign my buyer agency agreement, right? If you're going to be showing them a bunch of houses, make sure they can afford it first. I've seen people do this. They show someone houses for 2, 3, 4 weeks, show them 24 houses, and these people just enjoy seeing houses. They know that they have a 500 credit score, or they don't have a job, or they can't buy a house. That kind of goes back to that daily affirmation, right? Like find people that are willing and able and motivated to buy. Make sure that those people can buy a house. Buyer consultation. Why meet in your office? And you guys, you obviously have access to all 3 of our office locations. It's good for safety and security, professional, and you can control the environment. I personally always meet not at the office. I meet them at a house, or I meet them at their current house, whether it's a house they own or they rent, or at a coffee shop. But if you guys feel more comfortable, obviously, you know, that's why we have offices, so for you guys to bring clients in. Pushing for in-person is definitely something you guys should be doing. So if you get a lead or referral and you're just trying to talk to them over the phone, it's going to be a little bit harder than when you get them in person. So whether you meet them in an office or meet them at their current apartment or meet them at the Starbucks down the road, get in front of them. Make sure that you guys are meeting with them and building that rapport so they want to work with you. I find that that's the most important thing when someone's trying to choose between me and 5 other agents. If I'm spending that time and getting that face-to-face with them, I'm going to win 9 out of 10 times.
I have a question.
Yes.
I live in the boondocks, literally.
Mhm.
I have cows and goats for neighbors. So it is, my clients are in this side on my neck of the woods. I literally have nowhere I can meet them. So, and I don't feel comfortable yet going to their house. So what should I do there? Just maybe over the phone for a long period of time and build a rapport that way?
Yeah, I mean, if that's your comfort level, I mean, again, everyone's different. If your comfort level is just over the phone and you don't want to go to the house yet, for sure. If not, then it sounds like maybe the office would be the next step. I know it's probably a long drive, but maybe that's the next best step. Is I'm not sure which location it is, but maybe the Wesley Chapel office is the closest one for you. But but yeah, I mean, yeah, there are times where I have clients that are an hour away that I definitely want to get them to know them a little bit more over the phone before I drive out there, or meet with them. But I'm very much a face-to-face person for me. But yeah, if you don't feel comfortable going to their house, by all means, listen to your gut and don't do that. Or ask another agent. You know, if you ever feel uncomfortable going somewhere, you know, call me. I'll be happy. I'll roll with you. I'll be happy to go out there as well.
Okay. I may take you up on that sometime.
Anytime. Tyler's taking me up on that. I enjoy going out and meeting people in person. So the buyer consultation, verify the loan, again, make sure they're able to buy. Again, make sure you know what your buyer's criteria is and that it's realistic. Learn about your buyers, introduce buyers to your team. And when I hear that, I mean, when I hear team, I mean, I think of like my loan people that I use. Educate your buyer about the process from now to close. And we talked about that a few minutes ago. It's not just doing one showing and then putting the offer in. It's a long road, right? I mean, you're doing appraisals and inspections and negotiating repairs and dates, attorneys and all this other stuff. So just let them know that it's a long road that you're going to hold their hand through the whole process. You want to make sure that you're getting your exclusive buyer agency signed and schedule showings. And, you know, the question always comes up, well, do I have them sign the exclusive agency at the first showing? Or after a couple? Abby, what have you done so far? What have you found that's worked best for you?
I'm sorry, I missed the question. As far as what? I'm sorry.
When you're having your client sign the buyer's agency agreement.
I explained to them that it just solidifies that we work for each other and that I've got their back, that I'm all theirs, and that, you know, I'll do everything in my power to stand up, negotiate for them and make sure they get the best deal possible.
Yeah, definitely. And are you normally asking that the first time you guys meet or after a couple showings, or?
I've kind of done both. I don't feel comfortable yet getting that right off the bat. So I talk to them a good bit, and usually I will show them one house, and then that's when I send them the paper and get it signed.
Yeah, and if you haven't done this yet, and that's why I wanted to ask Abby, because everyone's approach is a little bit different. And, you know, Tyler, you've experienced this as well. Like, you know, sometimes the first time you meet them, you're gonna have them, you know, you obviously need to be working on getting them to sign the working with the real estate agent and showing that, you know, the first time you guys are having any talks about real estate. But also you need to make sure they're signing the buyer's agency agreement. And, you know, do you do that the first time you talk? Do you do that at the first showing when you meet them? Do you wait till a second showing? It really just depends on when you feel like you have their not the trust, but you've built that rapport enough to ask them. And it can be a little awkward sometimes. Like Abby mentioned, that very first time you meet them, you're there, it's a quick showing, 10 minutes, and they're getting back in their car, you're getting in your car, and you're trying to ask them to sign an agreement. So that's why I always try to get there a little bit early and try to spend a little bit of time with them afterwards in the parking lot and having those documents ready, so I can just quickly like, hey, like, this is what this is, take a look at it and try to get them to sign it. And if they need more time, you know, email to them so they can try to sign later on. It's a little bit different every time, honestly. The biggest thing that you need to make sure that you're doing is that you are asking, whether it's the first time or the second or third time that you meet them. Because if not, then someone else will show them a house and they will ask and they will get that agency agreement signed. And when that happens, then you're out of the picture, right? So just know that if you're not asking, somebody else will, right? So you don't want to come off trying to ask too early, but if you don't ask at all, then you are going to lose a client. Yeah, this is a very important one. Be sure that you're in the correct price range and know where they're at. And price range typically for most buyers is what they feel comfortable with a monthly payment, right? And that's typically what you're gonna find. You know, I can afford a $400,000 house because that means my payment is $2,200 a month or whatever it's gonna be, right? So make sure that they know where they're at. Because if you're out here showing them a bunch of $480,000 houses, but their budget is 400, right? Now when you start showing them the $400,000 houses, right? They're less quality houses. Now you've already got their hopes up for these higher end houses. So kind of know what that budget is from the very beginning, right? And the type of houses really depends on the market, right? So if I had somebody that had a $400,000 max of what they could buy in their price range a year ago when the market was crazy, I might be showing them houses worth 375 because we're probably gonna have to go 20,000 over to get it, right? So it really depends on the market. You know, now it's a little bit more even where if it's priced at 400, if it's a good offer at 400, you can probably get it at that. Sometimes you're having to go a little bit over. So it really depends on the market, but know their price range so that you're showing them houses that are in that range, which is super, super important. And then know the timing, right? Tyler's got to wait until their credit goes down a little bit. So they're not having to put 10% down. They can put 3.5% down. That's a big difference, right? Sometimes employment, sometimes, you know, maybe they need one more month at their employment to have a full 2 years or whatever the case may be. So know the timing of it. So maybe looking at a house right now when your lease doesn't end until April doesn't make sense, right? So make sure that you're being realistic on when they're looking at houses. We already went through this. All right. Here's that pending path again. So contract, inspections, repairs, lender requirements, title issues, close the transaction, move in. For the most part, we're all at this part, hoping to put in contracts. Who orders the inspections?
We do.
Gotcha. Okay. And what different inspections are you going to order? And how many different inspections are there? Obviously a home inspection, right? We all know the home inspection. If it's, you know, out in the country, maybe they have a well and septic, you know, those are two different inspections. You might do a termite inspection. You might do a radon inspection, right? So there's a lot of different things that can be inspected. Sometimes a lender will require certain things to be inspected. But for the most part, you're almost always going to want to have at least a home inspection. What about on a brand new house? Would you recommend that your client spend $600 on a brand new build? Anybody? I still would. I would still recommend it, at least let them know that it makes sense to make sure that new build is done correctly. You see a lot of horror stories of agents not recommending that they get inspection on a new build and something major's wrong and that comes back on the agent because you told them not to get it inspected. So things can go wrong on a new build as well. So always recommend that it's a good idea to have an inspection. So at least you've put that out there. If they choose not to have an inspection, then that's on them, right? But don't be that agent saying, hey, this house looks good. It was built in 2014. I don't think you need to do an inspection, save your money. That can get you in a lot of trouble, right? So present that they should have it inspected and then let them make that decision. If it's being financed, they're probably going to have it inspected, right? Because the lender is going to require that. But if it's a cash deal, you know, a lot of times like cash deals, people will forego those inspections, and that can be very tricky when they find out that the foundation is bad and that's a $25,000 fix, and that would have been found out very easily with the $600 inspection. So, yes. What about repairs? Go ahead.
Question. So is there a way where you can kind of document that you recommended inspection? And is that like via email or whatever, kind of to cover yourself so that your client doesn't come back at you and say, well, you told me to avoid the inspection when it really wasn't you telling them that.
Yeah, so if I'm in a situation like that, I try to have everything documented via text or email, and I always like notate in my CRM, like if it's a phone call, I let them know that they should get a home inspection. They opted to not get inspection because they think it's a waste of time, right? It just have all your notes. But if you can have a text or email that's in writing to them, always do that. You know, if you have that conversation, they say no, text them after, say, hey, just want to make sure that you don't want to do that inspection. I do think it's a good idea, but if you don't want to, that's fine. And then have them reply, no, I don't want to do it. So you have it in writing, right? Cover your tracks as much as you can on things like that. You know, there's certain things that seem like they're not going to be a big issue, but month, 2 months, 3 months down the road can pop up and bite you in the butt. What about repairs? Who decides what repairs are going to be done?
The seller does. I think.
Well, who asked for the repairs?
The buyer.
So the buyer is going to ask for the repairs and the lender, right? So the lender might say, hey, this house is not going to appraise unless the back porch is fixed. Which I just had that happen not so long ago, and the back porch had to be redone. And there's also majority of times that the repairs are asked by the buyer, right? So when you get that inspection report back, it is your job to look at that inspection report, whether it be 30 pages or 80 pages, and figure out what you want to ask the seller to repair and put that in the due diligence request, right? So the repair procedure process is one of the trickiest things when it comes to being an escrow, and that's where a lot of people lose deals. So, you know, if you've got an inspection report that's got 50 wrong things on it, you know, try to steer your client to not asking for every single thing that's wrong, right? And ask for the 5 or 6 things that are most important to them, right? Because at the end of the day, you want them to get the house, and they want the house, and they've already put due diligence down, and they will lose it if they don't get the house. But yeah, that's something that you're gonna have to work with your buyer on and get used to when you start getting into those situations and you're having questions on what they should and shouldn't be asking for. You know, ask another agent, get some advice from somebody else, because they can be tricky, and there are times where they need a lot of stuff fixed. And then there's also times where, you know, the seller doesn't have $5 in their pocket, they can't afford to fix this stuff, right? What do you do in that situation? You ask for a credit, right? I've got one right now that was just under contract, and there was some foundation issues, there was some plumbing issues, electrical issues, there was feces under the house, a lot of good stuff. And they were asking my seller to repair all this stuff, and financially not an option for them to do that. So they said, instead, we want a $20,000 credit. And they were prepared to move forward with just having a credit. And then the buyer would still buy the house, and they would fix the stuff with that credit, right? There's a lot of different options on how to proceed, but just make sure that you're viewing it from all different angles, right?
Is that is that credit cash at close for them to pay the contractor, or is it coming off the sale price?
No, in that case, the sale price was staying the same. It was showing up as cash at the table, basically.
Okay, so then when they close on it, they can then take that 20 grand and pay the contractor.
Yeah.
And do they have to prove the work to the attorney? So the attorney releases the funds? Is that how that worked?
No, definitely not in this case. There are sometimes, I had one close in January, and it was the $16,000 credit that we gave. The check was written out directly to the contractor.
Yeah, I had that when I was selling a house myself once.
Yeah, so sometimes it's just a credit, and you can decide whether you want to fix it or not, or sometimes that credit goes directly to the person that's been given the quote. So it can happen in a couple of different ways. And then also, like you mentioned, sometimes the sale of the house goes down, right? So instead of 220, it's 200, right? Obviously, when that happens, your commission goes down because the sale price goes down. So lender requirements, the lender's going to need certain things. They're going to need it to appraise at a certain amount. They're going to need certain repairs done. And then they're going to need their credit to be in order. They're going to need payoffs. There's a lot of different things. So making sure that you're constantly talking to the lender is going to be super helpful for you guys. So in your first couple of transactions, don't just get them under contract. Talk to the lender, talk to the listing agent, at least weekly, if not sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. If you're not doing that, things are going to sneak up on you, and some things take time. If you're not finding out there's issues until the week of closing, it's not going to close, right? So make sure you're staying on top of that. Title issues are always fun. Just had one recently where they had a second mortgage on the house and they didn't have a payoff for it, saying that it was satisfied. And we had to delay closing because of that. And that's more on the listing side, but those are issues that are going to come up. Closing the transaction. You guys, I'm sure, are going to be going to the closings. Usually on the buying side, you go to the closing with your client. On the listing side, I don't always go. I do sometimes, depending if I'm helping them buy and sell, but especially for your first couple of transactions, you guys should be going to the closings, right? Get used to the process, know how it works. It's pretty quick and easy, right? It's usually 10-15 minutes. It's not usually super long and drawn out. And in today's world, it's usually the sellers go in first and then the buyers come in. They're not sitting at the same table as often anymore. Sometimes it is, but usually it's pretty quick and easy. But know how that works and how long it takes, so you can explain that to your next potential client. And then moving in, when does your buyer get the keys?
As soon as they both sign the paperwork.
Tanya, what's your answer?
And it gets recorded.
When it gets recorded.
It's recorded.
There you go. When it gets recorded. And sometimes the seller will say, hey, like, we both signed, it's cool, here's the keys. But there's also times where until it's recorded, until those funds are released, they are not going to let that buyer in there. And I've literally seen buyers show up to closing with their U-Haul and it's 4 o'clock and the house isn't going to record to the following day. And they've only rented that U-Haul for 1 day and have nowhere to put it. And that the seller says, absolutely not. You're not going into that house until it's officially recorded and until I have my funds. So make sure that you know that going into it, right? Like if it's a late afternoon signing, then you need to be prepared for that and talk to the agent. Say, hey, look, if for whatever reason we both sign and it doesn't get recorded, are you going to allow us to have the keys? And the answer is no, then you need to make sure that you let your buyer know, because that can put you in a predicament for sure.
Hey, do you get your clients a gift at close?
Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes, not always. But I'm more on the listing side than the buyer, but yeah, you can definitely do that. It's always a good way to do it. The buyer consultation, we've already kind of went over this. But these are reasons why they want to work with you. I'm going to help you negotiate the best possible terms. Let's let them know that you're going to help them through the whole process, right? And that's what kind of Abby was mentioning before, when what she tells them, that she's going to work hard for them, right? That you're going to help them not spend more money, that you're going to get them through the whole process and stay with them until they get the keys and move in the house. That's really what buyers want. They want to know that you're going to hold their hand through the whole process, not just get them under contract and then let them find out the rest.
Brian, when do you take the sign out of the yard? Do you take it like the day of close, or what's the timeline on
that? Yeah, I usually the day of or the day before, I usually take it out, but I usually leave it up fairly long, just because it's getting me leads. Yeah, I mean, some people take it up as soon as it's under contract. It depends where it is. I mean, I had one in January that closed, and when we put them under contract, I took the sign because I wasn't planning on going back out there because it was an hour away. So that was just me being lazy. But no, if it's close, like I took 2 listings last week. I'm going to take pictures and put a sign out today. And it's right down the street, and it's a $800,000 house. So I will leave that sign out until the very last minute, till it's closed, because hopefully that will attract other buyers. Getting the agreement signed. Obviously it increases your odds of getting paid, and let them know that loyalty is a two-way street, that you want to work hard for them and you want to know that they are just giving you their attention. Make sure that you get that agreement signed. I know for a lot of new agents, asking for that signature is scary and tough. It really shouldn't be. It's not the bigger deal that you make it, the bigger deal it's going to seem to them, right? So if you're getting all nervous and acting like it's a big deal, believe me, they are going to feel like it's a big deal, right? It's really not. It's just saying that you're going to be their agent. It's not that big of a deal, right? So it should be a very, very casual conversation when you're asking to get that signed, but make sure you get it. I can't tell you how many times I've seen agents spend months and months with clients, and then they see an agent one time, show one house and sign an agreement with them. And there's nothing you can do once they sign an agreement with someone else. And you guys can read this. This is how a lot of agents are gonna present this. Let's move forward to the paperwork. Allows me to represent you. I will give you an overview of each section or paragraph. It is actually pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, please let me know. Again, it just allows me to work exclusively with you and vice versa. Showing appointments, set up the expectations, let your people to know to be on time. That is something I see. Oh my God, they'll show up 15, 20, 30 minutes late every showing. And it's not good. It looks bad on you, especially when it's not vacant. When you've got people that are like literally, if it's a 4 o'clock appointment and these people are typically going to leave their house at 3:50 or 3:55 and plan on coming back 30 minutes later, and you're still in their driveway and they can't come home. It's rude. Try to make sure your people are on time. I can't tell you how many times I've had clients do that, and it's very, very frustrating. If it's a vacant house, it's not that big of a deal. If your clients are running late, always call that listing agent. Be like, hey, like we're gonna be an extra 15 or 20 minutes. Can you please let your buyer know? Right? Make sure that you're communicating that.
Hey, Brian,
Yes.
what do you do when they show up with 4 children seriously under the age of 6? I mean, by the time they get there, the deal is done, but is that something you should try to feel out before we get to that point?
I mean, you can't really control that. But it's nice when you know up front, because you know that you're probably going to need a little bit more time. And make sure that I mean, ideally they're not bringing that many kids at that age, because they're going to be all over the place. But yeah, I've had that as well. I recently just had that with 3 kids, and they were there was a neighbor had a fire pit outside, and they were like lighting stuff on fire. I was like trying to show them the house. Kids are starting a fire outside, and I'm just like, yeah, you can't necessarily control that. It is ideal if you can have the adults just show it. If you really love the house, we can schedule a separate time and to bring the kids. We can schedule a longer time, is what I normally try to do, but they don't always tell you when they roll up in their minivan with 6 kids.
I told them point blank they had to hold their hands the entire time we were in the house.
Yeah, it definitely, because something gets missing or gone or broken, that looks bad on us. And I'll tell you, I don't think this is on a slide, but please understand that almost every house you go to has a camera, right? So when you walk up to the house and your buyer is saying, "Oh God, this house is ugly," or whatever they're saying, understand that you're on camera and know that yourself, right? So be presentable. Don't be picking your nose. Don't be saying nasty things. Don't be looking at crazy videos on your phone outside the door. They can see that. I promise you they can see that. You will get phone calls. They will call your BIC because you're watching some crazy TikTok on your phone and saying nasty things about the house. They can see you. So always assume there's a camera, even if you don't see one. almost every front door has a Ring camera or something, but you'll see a lot of these houses that have 3 or 4 cameras on the inside of the house as well. So just be aware, just be smart. Showings arranged, you can set them up with automated MLS searches. Sometimes you're going to have your client's going to want to send you houses they like. Sometimes they prefer where you just send them stuff and they pick from it. This is a good one. No more than 6 homes in a session. You kind of want to narrow it down to what they actually like. And there are times where they will send you stuff. Hey, I want to go see these 9 houses. And 5 of them are not houses that fits their criteria, right? Weed that out, right? Try to do a good job of like, hey, like this house isn't going to work for you, right? Like this, try not to waste your time. Sometimes doing so many appointments in a day is just not beneficial, right? So try to narrow their search down for your time and to keep their attention focused on what they actually want. And this is a good one too. Post buyers' needs on social media, right? See what other agents that work with us might have for you or coming soon. So your buyer can get a crack at something that maybe other people don't know about yet. Showing dues, call ahead. I do like to talk to the agent before I go out to most houses, especially if I think my client's going to put in an offer and find out like some things about the house that they might not have an MLS if they have offers. And I also do it because sometimes they've accepted an offer and they haven't changed the MLS yet. And you drive 40 minutes out to the house and show them the house and your buyer loves it. And then you get an email 10 minutes later saying this was under contract. So it definitely doesn't hurt calling the buyers or the listing agent. And also you're building that rapport. So if it goes well and you end up working with that agent, they're more prone to want to work with you because you've already started talking to them. Ring and knock the doorbell, even if it looks empty. I've walked in people coming out of the shower. Some people don't always leave on time. Not ring the doorbell, please. Lead the way initially. That's up to you. Some people kind of want to walk on their own. Some people want you to show them every single house. There's gonna be a lot of times that you guys get to the house at the same time with these people, and they're like, "Which way is the kitchen?" You're like, "It's my first time too," So if you can get there early and walk around and turn all the lights on, that's fantastic. There's times where you're showing 6 houses and you guys are literally following each other to every house. You're literally seeing it for the first time as well. Yeah, encourage them to walk around, watch and listen, get their feedback. Definitely return the home as you found it. Please do a good job of leaving the lights off and locking the doors. I can't tell you how many times people leave the back door open. I did that not too long ago. I didn't, but my client went back outside and left the doors wide open and they had a camera back there and I got a call 30 minutes later and I had to go back. So yes, keep the key in your pocket. I've done this before as well, where after the showing, for some reason, I put the key on the counter. I went out, locked the door, and I locked the key in the house. And not everyone has extra spare keys. So it wasn't a great situation. Learn from my stupid mistakes. But so now I always keep that key in my pocket and it does not come out until I put it back in the lockbox. So don't make those silly little mistakes. And listen to their feedback. Like you can look at their face, see if they're filling the house, listen to what they're saying if they like the house, and use that to find better homes for them in the future if this isn't the right one. Don't accompany the buyer in every room. I mean, I do most of the time walking pretty much because I want to see the house too. State the obvious, disagree with them, defend the property. Yeah, I mean, if they don't like the property, then there's really no reason in defending why it is a good property. Skip the house, set up showings into the buyers, eliminated one of them. Yeah, these are some things that's not going to be great for you. I don't necessarily agree with this top one, accompany them to every room, but obviously you shouldn't be disagreeing with them. If they don't like the house, they don't like the house. That's their prerogative. And this is a good one too. I mean, sometimes you just have to ask them like, hey, if this is the only house here, would you take this house, right? Would you buy this house? Or do we need to keep seeing every house that's on the market? Because sometimes people just need to be pushed in the right direction. Like this checks every box that you have. You like the house. Let's put an offer, right? I mean, sometimes you have to push them a little bit. Because if not, people would just look for the absolute perfect house for the next 6 months and they will never end up buying. And that happens. And that happens often. So there sometimes, you know, you have to push them or you have to stop showing them houses. Because you do ideally want to show them fewer homes. And you want to get them forward and get the ball rolling.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What if your buyer likes a couple houses, like 2 or 3 of them, and they can't decide and they want to put an offer on each of them? What do you do then?
I mean, and that definitely does happen. I mean, at the end of the day, you really only want to put an offer on really one house, until you know that they're not going to accept it. Because you want to put yourself in a situation where you're under contract on multiple houses, right? So you really just have to have them narrow down like which one's A, B, and C, and let's put in offers in that order.
And like kind of give them a timeline, like let's try it with this one, and then
Yeah, and on the offer, you're gonna want to put in like, you know, this offer expires tomorrow at 5 o'clock, right? Because if you're not going to accept it, we're gonna move on to another house.
yeah.
And let that buyer, the listing agent know that, you know, we have a short window because we're going to put an offer on another house. And that puts pressure on them to hopefully accept your offer sooner than later.
Okay. Because some people have like anxiety making big decisions, and so they like options. Like I don't want to miss out on a good house, but I can't decide if this is the right one compared to that one. They're all really good. So like, how do you deal with that? Like
Yeah, I mean,
indecisive?
that's a good problem to have versus someone that doesn't want to put any offers in because they're waiting for the perfect house. Yeah, and if you get it narrowed down to 2 or 3, and that's exactly why all these sites keep saying try to show them fewer houses, because the more houses you have, is like you might like them all, right? You really have to rank them into what you like the best, because you can only buy one of them. Yeah, and I do this all the time. Like if you've been to their house and you're listing their house, like you know what furniture they have, right? Or you know that they have 2 Dobermans and they need a fenced-in backyard. Like, you know, do you think the dogs will like this backyard? Do you think your furniture will fit in here? Do you think that your kids will like these extra rooms? Is there enough room in there? Like, you know, make sure that they're seeing themselves in the house and ask those questions, and listen to their answers. So they're telling you, no, this house definitely won't work because of this, and go ahead and rule that one out. Yeah, and this is, you know, pay attention to potential changes, make time to revisit the 3 lists, know the issues with either. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna know what your buyer likes. Yeah. Key areas to offer. Who decides what type of loan they have? Their lender,
Or
right?
lender.
Right. And you want to make sure when you're doing showings that you're showing house. If your buyer is an FHA buyer, in the MLS, it says on there proposed financing, right? And if it only says cash or only says cash and conventional, and you're showing them houses that aren't accepting FHA, then you might be wasting your time, right? So make sure that you're checking that and not showing them houses that they can't buy. And if they really like a house and they send it to you and they really want to see it and it doesn't say FHA or VA in the proposed financing, call the agent. Say, hey, is there a reason that you don't think this loan will go through on an FHA, or did you just not put it on there, and figure out why? But this is a big one. You know, a lot of times people are showing houses when they won't take those offers. Key areas for the offer is what type of loan it is, the inspections, repairs, property condition disclosures. Again, we talked about last week, and make sure that all the disclosures are signed. Here's kind of a sample offer cover letter. And again, this love letter is really cut out, but it helps when you put in an offer and you kind of break it down in the email, right? You're obviously going to have the offer attached. But it's nice when I get an offer and it's like set out like this, it's very nice. It lets me know that that buyer's agent is good at their job and they're going to, they've went out of the way to do this. I mean, there's a lot of times I just get an offer. It says nothing in the email. There's just an attachment. It doesn't say here's an offer. It doesn't say anything. This is a nice way to do it. It's got the purchase price. It's got the down payment, what type of financing, when they can close, who the attorney is. Little things like that are super, super helpful. And it makes the listing agent's job that much easier. Price and terms, be ready to negotiate. Are you putting your absolutely best offer in when you're with your client? Who's picking the closing date? Who's picking the due diligence date? Is your buyer flexible on those times? And if it gets negotiated back when we put the offer in, are they going to accept that? So those are all things. I mean, everyone typically only thinks about price, right? There's a lot of other stuff that comes along with it, right? The dates are huge. What type of financing is huge? Does your buyer have to sell their own house, right? That makes the offer more or less attractive depending on what things your buyer needs. So explain to your buyer that having a 60-day close maybe not be as appealing to another offer that they might get that's a 30-day close, right? So you want to make sure that you're negotiating things that's going to make your offer look the best. We just went over this one.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Do HOAs here give FHA loan restrictions? Like there was condos in a different state that HOA did not, they like put it in their clause that they do not accept FHA loans for their properties in that community. Do they do that here?
I haven't seen that. No, and that would probably be in the MLS, or that might be a reason they wouldn't have proposed financing for FHA on that listing. So when if I came across that property and it just had cash and conventional and FHA, or VA, not FHA, I would call that agent and ask. But you should be able to see that by the MLS.
If so as a listing agent though, if there is any kind of restriction by the HOA, you would find it out before you list it in the MLS, right? Like
they should, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. If you're listing the house, yeah, the seller should definitely be telling you those things. You should know it, but and you can always reach out to the HOA as well and figure out if there's any restrictions. But not a super common thing. What is a TC? I think you're on mute, Abby. I'm guessing you're saying transaction coordinator. Yeah. So the TC is oftentimes when you go under contract, the listing agent might have a transaction coordinator that kind of handles that whole process for them, right? So there are times that you don't necessarily communicate directly with the listing agent as much. You're messaging with the transaction coordinator who's handling all the paperwork and stuff. Most of the time, I like to have the listing agent and the transaction coordinator in the emails together, so that they're both getting it. But again, you should be communicating with the listing agent at least weekly, if not more often. Call, text, email. The more you're talking to them, the smoother the transaction is going to be. So just know that. Handling difficult agents. Again, we'll talk about this the whole time. I mean, other agents, sometimes their egos are just, it can be very tough. At the end of the day, I find that befriending them and making it a fun process is always the right thing to do. If you get into award things, it turns ugly, and at the end of the day, you're not being helpful to your client, right? And it's just a war between the two of you. And at the end of the day, you're not doing your job. So you don't do it. I don't see anyone on here doing that, but spend time with the other agent, get to know them, be on the same page with them. You don't want to befriend them so you're not taking care of your client, but it's going to go a long way versus trying to fight this other agent. And then you end up guys filing complaints against each other, and that's not fun either. Difficult buyers. You're definitely going to have difficult buyers. Every one of those cases is going to be completely different. I've had a lot of difficult sellers in the last 12 months. Each one's gonna be a little bit different. You have to understand that at the end of the day, if you want to get paid, you've got to get to the finish line. Sometimes you have to fire them. Sometimes you have to let clients go if they're going to be too difficult. Find out why they're unhappy is the most important thing. When it comes to money, people get upset about everything. So just know that. So telling you, if your first client loves you to death, and then when it gets closer to close, they're turning on you and they're mad at you. It's not you, right? It's money. And money makes people fight. I mean, just think about all the families you're going to see that fight over money. If they're going to fight with their own family, they're definitely going to fight with you. So there's times that that it's not you. It's just a position you're in, but try to figure out why they're getting mad at you so you're not having that happen every time. All right. So this is the inventory. So when it's 1 to 5 months worth of houses, this is what we would say it's a seller's market, which we've been very much heavily in the seller's market the last 2 or 3 years. It's starting to balance out a little bit now. And a buyer's market is where there's enough inventory for 7 to 12 months. So we're probably somewhere in here, somewhere probably in the middle here. Yeah, so in a seller's market, yeah, your offers are going to have to be, you're not asking for anything, you're trying to close as quick as you can, you're putting as much due diligence down. In a buyer's market, yeah, you want to ask for their furniture and you want to ask for them to pressure wash the sidewalk. All right, cool. But you're not going to ask someone to pressure wash the sidewalk when it's a seller's market, because they'll just take someone else's offer, right? Presenting the offer. Some of us live in the boonies. Some of us live, farther away. So, yeah. So doing it in person is not always possible. If you can do it in person, it's good. I always want to do it. I always want to give them the offer over the phone before I email it to them. Like I love telling them the offer verbally instead of just sending it to them and then letting them read it themselves. When you just send it to them, it's confusing. They don't understand it. They feel like you're not doing your job and presenting the offer to them. So get them on. If you can't do it in person, get them on the phone and explain the offer. And in my opinion, every offer is a good offer. If you're putting it in a bad light, they're going to take it as a bad light. And if you get a counter offer and it's 10,000 higher than what they originally offered, and you're telling them that, oh, you're not going to like this, but here it is, they're going to take it negatively. Versus, hey, I've got great news. We have a counter offer. This is what it is. And just presenting the facts and let them digest it. You're going to have a lot better results. Opening and closing escrow. So yeah, as a buyer's agent, we're picking the attorney, right? So when you have a completed offer to purchase, you're going to email that to the attorney and get that ball rolling. And the attorney is going to start asking your client and the listing, the seller for their information. So you go in escrow when you have an accepted offer to purchase. I went over this one before. Loan docs. So again, being in contact with the listing agent is huge, but also being in contact with the lender is super important as well, because you want to make sure that you've got those documents 3 days prior to closing, so you can close, because they need that the final documents 3 days prior. Make sure they understand their loan documents. And again, that's more of a conversation between, them and the lender. At that point in time, if the lender is good, they're on the phone with them weekly as well. But make sure that you're also in the loop, so you know what the lender is going on. Because if you're not in it, the buyer's going to tell you one thing, and you might not have the full story. So constantly be in contact with the lender and make sure that if you've got a closing on Friday, that the lender has sent out the documents typically by Tuesday, right? If it's getting Wednesday or Thursday and they haven't sent out any documents, then guess what? You're not going to be closing. Again, on the buying side, definitely try to be at the closing if possible. Make sure that you've got a time for closing that works for your buyer. And this is a good time to get pictures and have them share on social media, and you share on social media at closing. So I know you guys see that a lot. So closing does not happen until both have occurred. Funds released by the lender and the seller's funds have been received. And it has been recorded, right? So we kind of talked about that earlier as well. Just because you sign doesn't mean it's official, but typically, very rarely will the buyer and seller sign and it not close, but it can. So just know that once it's recorded, that's when it's official. So you'll want to email the attorney, usually an hour or two later, and say, hey, are we officially recorded? Can you send me the final documentation? And then you'll need to upload that into SkySlope, right? So you'll want that final signed CD. And then obviously when funds have been distributed, that means they've sent us the funds, right? So you can get paid. So you want to make sure that you follow up after closing and make sure that those funds have been done. During the process, the attorney is going to ask you, how do you want to get paid? And by that, they mean the commission check to Realty One Group. We have wire instructions. Sometimes they might ask if you want to come pick up a check, or they want to mail the check. Every attorney's office is a little bit different. So just figure out the best way for them to pay us, so then you can get paid. There are times where they just have a check and you never go pick it up, and you just never get paid until you start poking around. So I know that in advance. The first thing I do when I talk to attorneys is like, hey, we have wire instruction. Here's my wire instructions. Second, this is recorded. We're getting paid. So make sure that you're doing that. Arrange in advance for keys, garage door, all that good stuff. Sometimes attorneys don't like holding all those keys. And then sometimes the seller is going to bring all the keys in a bag to closing, and you pick it up when you're at the attorney's office and it closes. Sometimes they're going to lock all the keys in the house except for the front door key and leave it in the lockbox. So make sure that you're talking with the listing agent and figuring out how you're going to get those keys, right? And through COVID, a lot of stuff was remote and you weren't doing stuff in person. So getting the keys was a little bit different than the traditional, everyone sitting at the attorney's office signing paperwork, handing over keys. My last house I bought, it was literally a giant bag of keys, and they just slid it over after we signed everything. A lot of times you're not in the same room with the buyer and seller, and a lot of times the attorney doesn't have the key. So just make sure you figure out that kind of stuff in advance. And that is about it. Make sure that you're doing your one habit, making at least 3 calls every day, adding 3 new people every day, and taking notes every day. And you guys will be very successful. Any questions on that?
Thank you for answering all my questions. I appreciate it.
Of course, of course. All right. Well, you guys are going to go out and get some buyers this week? Yes. I might have an open house this weekend. So if you are interested, shoot me a text or email me after this. And I'll try to make that happen. You guys need anything? Abby, if you ever need anything, if you need me to run an appointment with you or meet with the client, don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you.
Yeah. And if you guys don't need anything until Monday, I'll see you next Monday. If not, then always feel free to give me a shout.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks. Have a great week.
You too.
Later.